Here we go, Sanjay. Huawei, or as in Dutch, they say Huawei, but that's completely wrong, right?
Well, I guess, not being originally a Chinese guy, it took me a while to pronounce it correctly.
So you pronounce it as Huawei?
Well, when I'm with my teams, I pronounce it as Huawei. When I'm home and when I say Huawei, nobody understands, so I say Huawei.
Yeah. Sanjay, you're based now in the Emirates, is that correct?
Yes, I live in Dubai.
But you have been all over the
role,
place.
yes, for many years.
Yeah, and you guys know each other how?
We've been in the industry for 30 plus years, building mission critical infrastructure. Those days, as one of the previous speakers mentioned, the biggest data center industry was banking, BFSI. So built a lot of data centers in the US for financial institutions.
I was just wondering, because you told me before that you have been in this industry very long, maybe almost at the beginning that you came in? Why did you choose for this industry?
I guess, my project in my engineering school was UPS. So I guess that's how kind of got into the business. But then at some point, at that point in time, the space was mission-critical infrastructure. So IT was one of the mission-critical infrastructures, right? You had semiconductor plants, you had a lot of process industries, instrumentation, nuclear power plants. And all of those required a very highly available, reliable power system. Yeah. And so that was the foundation, that was the cornerstone of the business. And then as IT as an application became so big, it kind of overshadowed the demand.
Reflect on what you have heard today. Everybody is painting a very rosy, sunny picture for this industry. Do you have the same take on this?
Well, I think the outlook is very real. It's very positive. But I think we need to look at what business we are in. I mean, like three of us, many of the folks in the room, we are in the business of offering a facility that can host IT and provide power and cooling. How much IT is driven by applications? What applications driven by the application players? Where will this IT be placed will depend upon cost economics. So at the end of the day, if you are in a country where you don't have enough power and don't have enough land, but you still want to be in the data center business, and then you complain about cost of power, cost of land, I think it's almost like growing cherry orchards in Dubai, right? So at the end of the day, there's a demand for infrastructure. There's a demand for massive amount of spaces with massive amount of energy, coupled with the demand for ESG, respecting the ESG requirements in terms of carbon footprints and so on. So what's the best mix you can get? And so Nordics can offer you that. I always pose a question to many people. What if I invite you to come to the Middle East? Because I do have a global role, but I'm very close to many decisions makers in the Middle East. And if they were to give you free power, zero cost to power, would you come? Well, you might be able to run a data center, but be completely non-compliant with any of your carbon footprint requirements. And so the question is, you need to find that balance, right? You are in that business of offering services. Does your country, does your ecosystem allow you to do that? And as a country, as government, you have to put regulations in place. You can't have one industry run away with 2 gigawatts of power.
Yeah, but you heard the speaker from Germany who has big problems with that. I suppose maybe where you are operating now, it's easier?
Not really. The problems are all real. It's about are you really understanding the depth of the problem? Or is it really a problem? Because if you ask the question differently, it may not be a problem. Okay. For example, I'll give you an example. I'm from Singapore. I mean, I've been a citizen of Singapore now for many years. Singapore has a moratorium on data centers. Right? I had dinner with one of the government members recently, and their outlook was, we don't want to get into the co-location business. It's a very smart decision. We don't have land. It's ridiculously expensive. We have no power. We import power. For green power, we are trying to have solar deployments in Australia and Indonesia. We're going to have undersea cables to bring power in. So is data center a good business for a country like Singapore? No. And so that is how the question needs to be framed. Is this the right business for you? I mean, there's a demand for 10 gigawatts, but you don't have 10 gigawatts. If you have it, it's not green. You don't have the land mass. So, and I believe that is how the question has to be posed.
Could you then, since we are in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam, answer that question to me? Because 50% of the land mass in the Netherlands is being explored or in use for farmers. What is the rest of it is, as you know, it is a very small country. And is the Netherlands an ideal country for data center?
And the whole data center co-location business started very early with the premise of, do you have demographics? Do you have people to serve? Because if you have people to serve, you need data to be processed to offer them. Then the next premise was, do you have interconnectivity? And Netherlands had the best interconnectivity. Yeah. So does Singapore, so does Tokyo, so does London, and so on. And that's how they grew. But now the third and fourth domain is, do you have enough power? And if you have enough power, is it green power? And so if those two questions cannot be answered, you need to go back to the first question. Is this the right business for that country? Because some other country may have a better equation on all these parameters.
Do you dare to give an answer then to my question? Is the Netherlands an ideal country?
I wouldn't dare to answer that question.
I thought so. So back to the AI and the search on cloud computing, driving the demands for more modular data center solutions. Where do you see, okay, you said reframe the question. Where do you see the solution for all these questions that are popping up now? Is there enough energy? Environmentally friendly or not? Perception?
I think the scale of the industry has grown tenfold. We're talking about cabinets from single-digit kilowatt per rack to double-digit. We're talking about buildings from single-digit megawatt to double-digit, campuses to triple-digit megawatts. And the speed at which these have to be deployed is in months. It's no longer 2-3 years. And so one of the easiest way to deploy at scale is standardization. Having said this, building a data center is construction business. It's hardcore foundations, concrete, cement, steel. It's a construction business. That's not easy. Generates a lot of wastage, takes a lot of time, requires tremendous coordination. So one thing that can help us, and this is the learning from the whole IT industry, right? I mean, the oldest standardization component in the IT industry has been the 19-inch rack. I think Westinghouse put it in 1890. In the 1960s, it became a telecom standard. It still is the building block of the whole trillion-dollar IT infrastructure, right? The first prefabricated house was built by a colonial fisherman who actually built it in the UK, took it across the Atlantic, reassembled in the US. So some of these technologies are very old. Question is, can we apply them? The minute you start talking modularization, the premise is standardization. The minute you standardize, you can modularize, you now have the ability to deploy on demand. That then, if it is done in the factory, you get factory level of automation, precision, quality, and much less wastage. And when you bring all of that to the table, at site, you're not doing any more construction. You're almost doing an assembly job on site. So the finish in terms of time, consistency is much better. So there are advantages that modularity brings to the table, but obviously it's very scenario specific. One, it may work in one particular case in a particular country. It may not work in some other markets for obvious reasons.
Yes. You're a man of the world. You have traveled and lived in many countries. You're working for a Chinese company. We haven't talked about that. Is it easier in China with the regulations to build huge data center to be in this business?
So I'm not so much privy as to how the regulation framework works, but clearly one of the ways to address this problem that we have, or the opportunity that we have, is when you're looking at a few hundred megawatts of energy, even if you have energy available at the generation point, be it windmills or be it solar plants, the grids today don't have the capability to transport that energy to the right locations. And so that is a major challenge. One of the ways to do it is to create zones in countries or in regions where you have data center zones where a lot of power can be optimized, the delivery of power can be optimized to be there. You then can create an ecosystem around it because, like my colleagues mentioned earlier, my peers mentioned, the data center today is part of the circular economy. 100 megawatt of data center is 100 megawatt of heat. If you could even take half of that and supply it somewhere else, you basically are getting into circular economy sustainability principles. And what this would allow you is a zone would allow you to create an ecosystem around that. There may be heat users who would want to be close to that zone because then the heat is easily sellable. And so What I see when I go to China, and I can tell you I have seen campuses in excess of 700, 800 megawatts running on 100% renewable energy. And these are set across large zones where an ecosystem has been developed to be able to facilitate this kind of deployment.
And that's the way to go? That is the future way to go?
Obviously, you wouldn't be able to do it in Amsterdam or in Singapore. But again, like I said, every geography, based on their resources and ecosystem available, will have a value proposition. Also, don't forget, these big data centers are still at the back end, right? They are all about training the models and all of that. But the real application of this will be in the inferencing, right? Right now, we bring data to the work. The future is we'll bring work to the data. The actual processing will be right in front. And that will not be 100, 200 megawatt in a single place. There probably will be 2, 3 megawatts in so many locations. And so clearly, there are different business models that will be out there.
But you are talking like science fiction, Jules Verne. You are saying data center will be the magnet for people to move to and go and work there instead of the other way around?
No, what I meant the other way around. I meant the IT context in the sense that the workload of IT today, you push data to the work as in processing.
Right.
And this is what you do today. Tomorrow, the processing will be at where you work, which means the edge. The data, the processing will happen very close to the customer. And that won't be a 400, 500 megawatt facility.
Last question to you as well. What do you foresee? Let's not make it 10 years from now. This goes so fast right now, the next couple of years.
Let me answer this in a different way. After spending about 20 plus years in the industry, 2007 odd, 8 odd.
You don't make predictions.
I was wondering, am I in the right job? Because this was the slowest moving industry. I mean, you talk of tech performance, any performance. But if you see what's happening in the last 7, 8 years, I mean, it's gone bonkers, literally. So it's a great place to be in. It's a fantastic, innovations are happening around us. And I think I don't think anyone will be able to predict. I think the right thing to do is don't go with predictions.
Sanjay, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
You.